Hey, what's up everybody? Hammerheart Metal Reviews here once again. Today we're doing another edition in my series where I'm counting down my favorite metal albums by the decade. And today we're going to be talking about the 2000s. So my favorite albums from the year 2000 to 2009. I'm going to do a top 25 here. When I started this series in the 70s, I only did a top 10. And then as I started doing like the 80s, 90s, I realized this is fucking impossible to do a top 10. You have to do at least a top 25 because there's just too many albums I want to talk about. And I swear this series just keeps getting harder every single time. Doing this one, trying to limit to 25 was so hard. Like, there are so many albums that I'm just not going to be mentioning that I want to, but I don't want to do a top 100. Top 25, like, I gotta limit it somewhat. But yeah, this is just stupid. I tried to include some different subgenres of metal here, so it's not just a black metal list, as that is. As I was making this, I was tending to find that like the vast majority of it is black metal, and it still probably is, but there might be a few albums that I listen to more from the black metal genre than some of these others, but I wanted to at least switch it up and include a few from different subgenres. But anyways, I'm rambling on. I'm just going to get into it. 25 excellent albums from 2000 to 2009. Let's go. All right. Just cracking the list in 25th place, I am going with Gamma Ray and their album No World Order from 2001. So Gamma Ray, of course, formed by Kai Hansen after he left Helloween. And this started out, Kai Hansen wasn't doing vocals on the first couple albums, but then by the third album, Land of the Free, he was doing vocals. And from that point on, they released a string of absolutely amazing power metal albums like Land of the Free, Somewhere Out in Space, Power Plant, and No World Order. And this one being from the 2000s in this period I'm talking about, wow, absolutely one of the most catchy, awesome power metal albums from this decade for sure. So I had to put it on this list. It's just amazing, amazing stuff. If you've never checked out Gamma Ray before, this could be a good album to start with. Go check out No World Order if you're into power metal at all, because it will knock your socks off. All right, up next at number 24. Going with Forteresse and their album Les Hivers de notre epoque from 2008. So, of course, for me being up here in Canada, I have a soft spot for some Canadian content, although Forteresse probably doesn't want to be referred to as Canadian, but from Quebec. And yeah, just ice cold black metal really has their typical sound here, like a wall of sound that just creates this really great atmosphere that you will just get sucked into. It's like minimalistic riffs. It's all about the atmosphere here, but really well done stuff. Probably my favorite Forteresse album, and that's saying something because I love everything they've ever released. But yeah, awesome, awesome black metal band here. Go check them out if you have not. All right, let's switch it up a bit for the next one at number 23, going with Kalma and They Will Return from 2002. So this is some melodic death metal from Finland. It includes some keyboards as well as just amazing twin guitar harmonies. I know a lot of comparisons will be to a band like Children of Bodom, but honestly, I think Kalma is a notch above. I feel like they're one of the best melodic death metal bands out there that are super underrated. And yeah, this is their sophomore album, They Will Return. Could have put a few different albums by them here. This has always been the album I lean to the most. Just really awesome stuff. You're going to be singing along, catchy ass riffs, wicked stuff in at number 23. All right, up next at number 22, I'm going with Horn with Die Kraft des Szenarien. Can't even say that, from 2006. I do not know how to speak German, so I apologize for my terrible pronunciation there. This is a sophomore album by Horn, and just amazing stuff here. Another band that just really captures the atmospheres perfectly here. This is a one-man band, and this just really evokes feelings of nature. Like, you close your eyes and you just drift off while listening to this. The atmosphere captured on this album is perfect. Absolutely love it. I love every album Horn's ever done, and this is one of his best for sure. Definitely go check it out if you have not. All right, up next at number 21, let's go with some death metal with Hate Eternal and the album I, Monarch from 2005. So this was another one where it's really tough to pick which album, as I really was torn between this and King of All Kings. They're neck and neck for me. I went with I, Monarch because I feel like the songwriting stepped it up a notch, but nonetheless, either of those choices would make sense to me here. This is just an amazing goddamn album. The drumming on display is nuts. The riffs are awesome, and I love the vocals too. Like, this is brutal death metal, but done with that old school flavor like Eric Rutan can only do. And yeah, amazing death metal album. Go listen to it if you haven't. Up next at number 20, I'm going with the legend, Bathory, and their album Nordland I from 2002. So at this stage in Bathory's career, he's gone through quite a few different eras, and this, at this point, is just like pure Viking metal. There's not really any black metal left in the sound here, but this is his most epic. Quorthon's like crowning achievement is his last couple albums, Nordland I and Nordland II. I'm not saying they're my favorite Bathory albums, but he worked his whole career towards making these masterpieces, and it's just a great goddamn album. It hits such high highs. The atmosphere takes you to the Nordlands, and you just feel sucked in, and these songs are so catchy and memorable. Like, the guitar is really well done. I feel like Quorthon's a super underrated guitar player, and just the way he incorporates in the choirs and the keys, it's just an amazing album. In 20th place. All right, up next at 19, one of my favorite bands of all time, Blind Guardian, with A Night at the Opera from 2002. So pretty much any one of these decade lists is gonna feature Blind Guardian if they released an album in that decade. This one was an easier choice as they only released a couple albums between 2000 and 2009. And in this decade, A Night at the Opera is my favorite Blind Guardian album. Although it's not my favorite Blind Guardian album, it's still very well done. I mean, it closes off with And Then There Was Silence, one of their most epic songs ever. But even though this went in a more progressive direction, started dialing up all of the orchestrations, I still really dig it. I think it's really well done. I mean, they're one of my favorite bands for a reason. Could be even higher than 19th, but for today, it's in here in 19th place. All right, up next in 18th, I'm going with Taka and Hordaland's Dødsfad from 2005. Another one I'm having a hard time pronouncing here. But yeah, this is the third album from Taka, and I feel like this is my favorite Taka album. His first three albums are all neck and neck, but wow, amazing black metal album here. The riffs on display are insane. West's vocals are great. It's just like folky melodies, but I don't want to call this like folky black metal because that'll give you the wrong picture if you haven't heard this before. It's just like undertones of folkiness with the riffs, but it's just aggressive black metal, really well done, in an 18th place. Sticking with black metal, up next in 17th, I'm going with Immortal and Sons of Northern Darkness from 2002. So this is possibly Immortal's most epic album. It's not my number one favorite. I prefer At the Heart of Winter, but that was from the previous decade. So for making this list, this was a pretty easy choice. This is one of my favorite Immortal albums, and it's just got so many great songs here. You've got some shorter to the point, catchy songs, but then you've also got these long, drawn-out epics, and it just takes you on an ice-cold journey. Absolutely amazing band and amazing album. Up next at number 16, let's go with some more Canadian content with Woods of Ypres and Pursuit of the Sun and Allure of the Earth from 2004. So this is the Woods 2, also known as that, and their debut was more in the black metal vein. While it still had some like clean singing and hints of doom in there, this really dialed up the doom influences while still retaining that black metal edge. It's really a mix to make their own unique style of blackened doom, and I absolutely love this album. David Gold's clean singing here is so sorrowful and melancholic, but it suits the music so well. Like, there's so much emotion going into this, and then you've still got some raging, like, ripping black metal songs too, but it also slows down and really brings out the melancholy. Amazing album, could have been even higher, but for today it's in at 16th. Up next in 15th, go with some more death metal with Exhumed and the album Slaughtercult from the year 2000. So yeah, Exhumed's one of my favorite death metal bands of all time. This stage in their career, there was still a big grind influence, a lot of like shorter songs. But wow, the riffs and solos here are frantic and energetic and just amazing. You will be headbanging, trying to even understand what's going on with these riffs. But then once you like hear the little earworms in there, it's insane. It's insanely good. I love the contrast of the high-pitched vocals and the low gutturals as well. No one does this style better than Exhumed. One of my favorite bands for a reason, and this is my favorite Exhumed album, so had to make the list. Up next at number 14, one of my favorite all-time bands, Enslaved, with their album Below the Lights from 2003. So this album saw them really go in an even more progressive direction. That like their career has gone through a few different eras. I feel like this album kind of started a new era for this decade of Enslaved's music, and they've expanded on the sound since. But wow, it's kind of hailed as one of their best, and for good reason. This is just full of great songs, experimental in some places, but really well done. Awesome, awesome stuff by one of my favorite bands. Up next at number 13, I'm going with Woden's Throne and their debut album, Loss, from 2009. So this, to me, is one of the most criminally underrated bands ever. They are no longer in existence and only put out 2 albums, but both of them are excellent atmospheric black metal. They're from the UK, and wow, this is one of my favorite albums of all time, and it's just so goddamn good. And more people need to listen to this, so if you haven't heard it, please go check it out. Another one that you will just get lost in the atmospheres here. It's aggressive, but also like paints the picture of, it almost feels like you're in a rainstorm and you just close your eyes and you're sucked in. I'm probably using those same terminologies a little bit too much here, but nonetheless, atmospheric black metal, some of those words apply to multiple albums, but nonetheless, go check out Woden's Throne, Lost. Goddamn amazing album. All right, up next at number 12. Let's switch it up with some epic doom with Ereb Altor and their debut album By Honor from 2008. So if you have heard Ereb Altor before, or if you haven't, like they definitely started out in an epic doom kind of genre. These days they've incorporated so much more black metal into their sound, and like folk influences really runs the gamut. But on this debut album, this is like pure epic doom, very much inspired by the Viking era of Bathory, and wow, absolutely amazing. This is probably my favorite Ereb Altor album, even though I love the later day stuff too. This one just really pulls at my heartstrings. It reminds me of Corthon and Bathory while still doing something fresh and new, and I just absolutely love every single song on this album. It's sorrowful and heavy and epic, and I love all of those things. Amazing album, underrated. Go listen to it. All right, up next at number 11, I'm going with Summoning and Let Mortal Heroes Sing Your Fame from 2001. Another band that pretty much any decade they released an album in, they're probably going to show up on my list because they're one of my favorite bands of all time. For this decade, it was a little bit easier because they didn't release a ton of albums here. Basically, it was either this or Oathbound, I believe, were those the only 2 albums from this decade. But I lean towards this one a little bit more. It's not my all-time favorite Summoning album. Those would be from the previous decade or subsequent decade as well. But this album is still, it's epic. They started bringing in some clean singing, just in spots, really in one track. But it's so well done, not just the clean singing, but the whole album. Like, the masters of this genre style of atmospheric black metal. Really, no one else does it as good. Just missed out on my top 10, but could easily be there any given day. Now let's get into my top 10. Oh man, this already was stupid. All those albums I just mentioned weren't even in my top 10. I love every single one of those, but these lists are fun to do, even though they drive me a bit crazy, because it's like, how do you rank these albums? I love all of these, but I digress. Let's get into the top 10 now. Cracking the list in 10th place, I'm going with Ensiferum and their sophomore album Iron from 2004. So this is just catchy ass folk metal, like melodic death metal in the folk metal style. Got like the aggressive style singing, but then also clean chanting and choirs, and it just works so well. These songs are so catchy. There's so much melody in the guitar playing. You will be singing along in no time. This album just has some of my favorite Ensiferum songs ever, like Into Battle, Lie Lie Hey, Iron. Amazing stuff in 10th place. Up next in 9th, let's go with some power metal, and probably my favorite power metal album from this decade, and that is Rhapsody with Dawn of Victory from the year 2000. It's always tough to pick which Rhapsody album because everything they have released basically is a masterpiece, maybe a couple that don't, but for the most part. And yeah, this one being released in 2000, it was after some that maybe I consider better from the 90s, but in their 2000 era, Dawn of Victory is probably right at the top for me. Just amazing symphonic power metal. They are the best in this style of power metal. Soaring vocals, great guitar, great keyboards. Everything I want in this style of album is here. It's catchy, it's memorable, it's amazing. In a 9th place. Up next in 8th, I'm going with an album that I think is severely underrated, and that is Quo Vadis with the album Day into Night from the year 2000. So this is a Canadian band, plays a unique style of like technical death metal that's very melodic. Bands I would compare this to would be like Heartwork era Carcass meets Symbolic era Death, if that makes sense. So like the guitar playing is really technical, the drummer is goddamn amazing, the vocals sound like Carcass. So put all those things together and this is what you get, but the guitar playing on this album will blow you away. There are catchy melodies and it's beautiful in parts too. Like there's so much great guitar playing here and one of the best drum performances I have ever heard. Honestly, if you have not heard this album and anything I just said sounds like it might interest you, strongly recommend you go check out this album because it might just blow your socks off. All right, up next in 7th place, I'm going with Moon Sorrow and the album Verissakit from 2005. So Moon Sorrow, one of my favorite bands of all time. Every single album they released is almost a 10 out of 10 album, so it's very tough to pick which is my favorite. I went with Verissakit here from this decade. But it's a toss-up. I mean, you could go with Kevin Kataja, you could go with Voimasta Jakuniasta, like they all could be in this same spot. They are all so good, but this one I'm giving the edge to, for whatever reason. That's just the one that I personally prefer, but any of these albums make sense. If you haven't heard them before, it's pagan metal, basically black metal combined with folk metal, but so epic, really long drawn out compositions, but they don't feel long. You just get lost in it and takes you on a journey. Most epic band around, at least to my ears. Amazing stuff, and in 7th place. Up next in 6th, I'm going with Agalloch and The Mantle from 2002. So this is their sophomore album. I do actually prefer Pale Folklore, their debut, but that was from the 90s. So for this decade, yes, it is The Mantle, and this is another masterpiece. Like Agalloch, another flawless discography. Everything they touched is just gold. And this is one of their best, easily. No other band really combined the acoustics of neo-folk with the aggressiveness of black metal and the cinematic atmospheres of others, like almost a movie. I don't want to say it's cinematic like a movie, but it's hard to describe. But it really has this overarching atmosphere that you're just gonna fall in love with. It's this really majestic quality to it. It's hard for me to describe here, but I'm sure if you've heard the album, you know what I'm talking about. It really flows between different styles. It's got instrumental interludes. It's got beautiful acoustic sections, and it's got aggressive black metal parts as well, and it just flows seamlessly. Flawless album, and in 6th place. All right, we got 5 more to go. All these albums I just talked about, and there's still 5 that I consider to be even better. What are they going to be? Let's find out right now. So in 5th place, I'm going with Drudkh and Blood in Our Wells from 2006. So the Ukrainian atmospheric black metal legends with my favorite album by them. This could easily be even higher than 5th. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. I'm going to be repeating words here again, but yeah, you're going to get lost in the atmosphere here. Swirling riffs that you just cannot help but hum along to, and you're just going to fall in love with every moment of this. It's so goddamn good. I'm running out of words here as I'm going through all these albums, but man, go listen to Blood in Our Wells if you have not. Amazing black metal album, in 5th place. Up next in 4th, switching it up completely with Winter Sun and their self-titled debut album from 2004. So this is Jari Manpa's band after he left Ensiferum. He wanted to expand on his own musical tastes a little bit, so kind of brought in like some symphonic power metal elements into the melodic death metal to really make his own unique style here. It's got the aggressive singing as well as clean singing and choirs and really orchestrated arrangements. But yeah, the guitar playing here, absolutely amazing. This is one of my favorite albums of all time. I know Winter Sun kind of gets shit on these days for all of their antics with their crowdfunding and all that stuff. But nonetheless, I don't care about that. I care about the music. And this album still kicks ass. And I still listen to it all the time. Goddamn love it. In 4th place. All right, 3 more to go. Up next in 3rd place, I'm going with Opeth and Blackwater Park from 2001. So this is definitely one of Opeth's masterpieces. They have a few, to be honest. It's always tough to pick which will be the favorite Opeth album. But when we're just looking at 2000 to 2009, this one was an easy choice for me. I absolutely love this album. You got songs like The Leper Affinity. You've got an acoustic song like Harvest. You've got the Drapery Falls. Like, everything about this album, it just knocks it out of the park. Absolutely amazing progressive death metal. One of the best in the genre. Easily in third place. All right, we got 2 more to talk about today. These next 2 are 2 of my favorite albums of all time. They are both black metal albums, and they were both released in the same year, 2001. Every time I've done some sort of like year list or decade list or favorite black metal albums list, these ones are always right there. And it just so happens that they came out very close to each other. But yeah, the order may switch in some of my lists because it just depends on the day. But let's find out right now what these 2 albums are. 2 of my absolute favorite albums of all time. In second place, I'm going with Absu and Tara from 2001. Absolute masterpiece. Absolute masterpiece. Prescriptor McGovern's drumming and vocals are insane on this album. The riff constructions are amazing. This has like Scottish Celtic themes throughout. Features some guest vocals by King Diamond in spots, and even brings in some other guests as well to do some falsettos and clean vocals. But Prescriptor's performance is unreal. The songs on this album are just insane. Everything about it I love, start to finish, from the opening bagpipes to the closing. It is a goddamn masterpiece. Love this album. If you've never heard it, do yourself a favor and go listen to it right now. But that just leaves one that might be even better. Like I said, also from 2001, Windir with their album 1184. Possibly my favorite black metal album of all time. Valfar is a musical genius, combining his folk metal with accordions and all that into the black metal styles. The vocals are aggressive, but brings in some clean vocals in parts as well. This is the first album where he incorporated in a full band. His first 2 albums was basically just him with a few guest spots here and there. But he did actually have a full lineup. The rest of the guys went on to form Vride after Valfar passed away. But yeah, this is just peak black metal, peak Windir. This is amazing. Every single song here hits the marks. You got Journey to the End, which is a little bit experimental at the end with some almost like techno beats. You got songs like Destroy, Dance of the Mortal Lust, The Spirit Lord. Every single song here is goddamn amazing. That's why it's in #1 for my favorite albums from 2000 to 2009. So anyways, these are just my thoughts and opinions as usual. Love to get your picks down below. Let me know which ones you can't believe I didn't mention. And until next time, Hammerheart Metal Reviews, out.